Science of the Southland number 268. It's April 14th, 2025. It's finally turning. It feels like today was the first like pivot into real spring. Like there's actual like proper weather, spring weather upcoming. I have a lot of golf in my near future. Jake, don't give me that Chicago side eye. Anyways,
What was last weekend, Jack? It was 81 degrees and all
well,
that. Yeah.
I was wearing long sleeves earlier this week. That's why. Anyways,
Fair.
we
I'll
got
allow it.
there you go. We got spring game stuff. We got more baseball to talk about, some softball. We'll talk about Hiroshi Tai and a little bit of women's basketball. But first, we've got Jackson Caudell here from the various names that Sports Illustrated devotes to his work. I forget them all the time because there's eight. It's just a word cloud in my head at this point with the number of names there are. And I know you don't take that as any offense because
No,
I,
no.
yeah,
If this was my first time, like we might have to argue a little bit, but I know you well enough at this
yeah.
point. But it's now Georgia Tech on SI.
Okay, that's actually much more
It's a
reasonable and
lot more
like under
formal,
like
right?
I can understand that checks out in my head. That you
Okay,
can guess that. That's what's good about that name. You
exactly.
can
Search engine optimization. Yes,
yes,
there you go.
exactly. Um, Jake and Jackson. Oh man, again the name thing. I have not invited Jackson on here to improve our name diversity whatsoever. But anyways, you both were at the spring game. I was not, so I will leave y'all to, for the most part, just explain how this spring game went down. Did anything stand out? Was it just a nice day to be in Bobby Dodd Stadium on a sunny day and see people run around a field, or was there something more serious going on that stood out? Well, Jackson, you go first.
So I say this about spring games, but mostly all the time is like as long as nobody gets hurt, that should always be like the number one takeaway. And nobody got hurt. Like there were
Yeah.
some players that didn't play, but like there is no like major injury news. So that's a huge win unto
Yep,
itself.
yep.
As
Yeah.
far as like big takeaways, I don't. It seems weird that I'm coming on here to talk about this game and like I don't have any just massive takeaways, but it's just kind of the nature of the spring game itself is
Right.
like there was not an in on time, and it was more of a how like in spring games they do the QBs, you don't hit the QBs. Well, you didn't hit Jamal like in this game. Like it was just, and
Mm,
that was obviously like what I wanted to see. Little short at running back too. I'll say as far as that goes, Trelane Maddox was really he ran really physical. Again,
that's
that's
good.
not
Yep.
a
That's big.
not like
Yeah.
a broad takeaway, but I'm a big fan of him. Ever since I saw
Mm,
him in practice last year, it was a shame he got hurt because I really think he could have taken that number two spot on the depth chart and
it
Yep.
did seem like that.
kept
Yeah.
hold
Yeah.
there. So I'm excited about him. JP Powell, true freshman, got a touchdown. That was nice to see. And as you were alluding to before the show, there were some receivers that did not play in this game.
No,
Eric Rivers and Dean Patterson, the two FIU transfers. Malik Rutherford did not play. Isaiah Canyon,
Yep.
who I'm also like buy your stock now,
I
like
think we're all in that boat with Isaiah Canyon. We
buy
are
your
ready for
stock
that
now.
leap. Yeah. Yep.
But it was a good day for them overall. Like Bailey Stockton, he made several catches. Zion Taylor, a guy who has been in the program for 2 years, and Brent Key talked about him a lot in the post game. Like you don't see that a lot
Yep.
nowadays. It's like if you don't play right away, a lot of guys transfer out. He has stayed with the process for the past couple of years. Not to sound too cliche or anything, but like he stuck with it and he made some big catches. Now does he play over any of those four guys that were injured? I don't know, but it was good to see him take the opportunity. Like I would have been more alarmed if nobody did anything, and it's like, okay, after those four
Yeah.
receivers, are
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
like what's the deal there? But that Stockton made some plays, Zion Taylor made some plays. DeBron Gatling, the South Carolina transfer, he had 13 targets in this game. Now
Huh, all
some of
right.
that is
Yeah.
obviously a product of not many receivers out there, but he made the most of his opportunities, like I was just saying.
Yeah.
I thought that my other takeaway was the secondary flew around a good bit. Omar Daniels had an interception. It would have been a pick six if
Yeah.
it was actually a live scrimmage.
Mm,
Clayton Powell
Yep.
Lee had a nice diving interceptions on what was kind of a bad Graham Knowles throw over the middle. AJ Cheeks got an interception down at the goal line, and I know Key talked about him after the game. He had a kind of a bad knee injury not long ago, and just kind of see him bounce back from that was nice.
mhm.
It's another thing I'll say. It's kind of hard to have takeaways from the front seven on the spring game because
That's
one,
true. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
defensive line can't sack the quarterback. They're not going to blitz, so it's hard to tell the linebackers. And the other thing with the linebackers is what I was saying earlier. There was no emphasis on running the ball, like at all. Like
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
you had, I
Yeah.
think maybe maybe 9 to 10 carries. I think Maddox had like 7, Powell had like 5 or 6, and Daylon Gordon, he had a couple, but there was just no emphasis on that. So outside of
Yeah.
coverage, it was kind of hard to give takeaways for the linebackers. But just to kind of summarize it all, I thought the pass catchers, the ones that played, stepped up and made the most of their opportunities. I thought quarterback play was fine. Again, like I kind of just like I know what Haynes King and Aaron Philo kind of are. Like I was excited to see Graham Knowles, and it was kind of what you expected. He's a young quarterback. He's pretty raw still. Like that was the case when he came in as a recruit. He had some nice throws. The interception was kind of bad, not gonna lie. But that was fine. And then the secondary made some plays as well. So like you had some good things. It was a fun experience too. I left like if I was a fan in the stands watching that instead of up in the press box covering it, I would have been like that was pretty satisfying. Like you had a double pass from Jamal to Zion Taylor, just some fun stuff. So I thought it was a good experience overall, and some guys stepped up and made plays.
What a perfect segue. Jake, were you satisfied with your fan experience at Bobby Dodd Stadium?
Yeah, I think that was probably the main thing that I was going for. Honestly, if baseball had started before 4 p.m., we probably would have wound up there, just because
Fair, fair.
it's
Yeah.
a game that counts for a team that we'll talk about in a minute. But good stuff going on there. Just kind of in the guy who sits in the crowd type perspective, it was a good turnout. Campus was very lively. Midtown was lively. It was a good day to be out and about
It was. It was.
in Atlanta. Yeah, we kind of on not on a lark, but it's like, let's go to the spring game, that kind of thing. And yeah, I think the main takeaways are people seemed generally excited to be outside in the city. I think for gosh, I think in Jeff's first spring game, I remember sitting on the West Stands side of the field, and I don't think I remember them having it that spread out in the key era. It's all been more everyone on that East Stands type
Right.
side, and it was kind of like the visiting band corner around to the like tech student section corner was basically
Hmm.
all full. I don't know how it looked from the press box, but it was hard to find a seat. And they were kind of letting people kind of spill out a little onto the
That's good.
sides. And I don't know if it was upstairs, but in terms of fan perspective, I don't know. I didn't eat any food. I saw the Dublin Trophy. Like it was a fine day to be at the stadium and out and about. In terms of what I saw on the field, um, I had the roster on my phone, and the first play that made me go, okay, who is that? Because I thought it was Chad Alexander, but it was Traylon Maddox after contact got, oh gosh, it had to have been 8 or 9 yards where he just barreled through whoever was guarding him. I didn't write down notes, but definitely stuck to my head, and really is the only, to your point, Jackson, is really the only meaningful run play I remember happening. Which sounds a little weird for a team that kind of makes its due on the ground a little bit there. So that stuck out. I think he looked really powerful. Like I said, I thought it was Chad for a second, and then I was like, wait, no, I gotta look this up because that's why they send out the roster. But yeah, Omar looked good. Omar Daniels definitely thought that was a good thing to see. I think kind of zooming out a little bit, one thing that I have been apprehensive about is just we've had so much defensive inconsistency after arguably having too much consistency when the old staff was flushed.
Right. Right.
But between Omar and to your point, Mr. Cheeks and their plays on the balls, just kind of general coverage, I thought like they looked lively. They looked like they were taking decent enough lines. That my angle's weird, sitting on the opposite side of the stadium, but looked like good lines, good routes, and they're flying around. And I don't know. It was a practice, right? How much of this can you actually say is good? And that's kind of my spring game as it stands point too. So.
Well, and just to piggyback off your secondary point, just right quick, is like I know Blake Gideon is not coaching a specific area, the new defense coordinator. He's kind of
Yeah.
walking around doing it all, but that was what he did at Texas, and that's what he's
Yes.
kind of known for. So I do think like that's notable. And again, I know it's a spring game, but like it hopefully that's what you see in the fall.
Well, I mean, it's a spring game, but they still have to do the thing. Like
Sure,
to your
yeah.
to your point, like if you got to make for these guys, every single day is a way to possibly play in the big time after or a step close to playing in the NFL if they want to do that with their life. And so like even if it is spring and like yes, you play to not get hurt and things like that, like you have to be smart in that context, but it's still like If you got a chance to go get an interception or go make a tackle, you're going to go make that tackle. You're going to go get those yards as much as you're permitted in the bounds of the structure. So I mean, just knowing that there was like actually like okay, no, dudes that we want to be seeing do things later on, even if it is in this weird context, actually still doing it and doing it at full effort. That's and also that just speaks to just how good and just how stable this program is too. That like we're not goofing around at this at a spring game. There'd be a little bit of goofiness, but like with a fun double pass. But
I mean, I've seen
it's
enough goofiness from the previous regime to say
right.
that the level of goof is an adequately neither good nor bad amount, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like
It shouldn't be noticed. It should just be a fun little twick, a fun little thing you add in. It just as a, it's just a gimmick, not a primary feature like it used to be.
it,
Um. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. On Gideon Jackson, I know. I mean, obviously we still have. I mean, we'll find out in Boulder what the net result of a lot of this change and overhaul has been. But I mean, what have from the practice stuff you've seen at practice and when Gideon's talked at the pressers, what have you pulled from him so far?
So I found him to be pretty impressive, and like watching him walk around, it's almost like and he kind of said the same thing. He's like the head coach of the defense because Santucci coached linebackers, like he was with the linebackers all the time, coaching them up, doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I'm at practice, like it's he's with the defensive line, coaching them up how to do things. A lot of times when they're doing like one-on-ones with like offensive linemen or things like that, he's obviously he does spend a good bit with the secondary. Just like he played safety at Texas, he coached DBs at Texas. Like that's just kind of his calling card. But he kind of stands in the middle of the defense. Whenever I see them doing the team stuff and whatever, does the linebackers, it's just kind of interesting to see, because that's what I look for from Key out there when they look like the 10 minutes we get to watch a practice when we're out there. But like you see Key doing that, but then on the defensive side of the field, Gideon's doing the same thing, and like it's a little bit different than watching like Buster because Buster is with the QBs a lot of the time, and I know he
Mm-hmm.
used to be tight ends coach, but that's Nathan Brock now. But that kind of aspect of it is pretty interesting to see from a defensive coach. And look, they've responded pretty well to him. Whenever we got to talk to any defensive players, I always tried to make sure to ask them like, hey, like this is the second straight new defensive coordinator you're playing for. In some cases, I guess the third. Like
Yeah.
how's it been with Blake Gideon? Like they all have glowing reviews. Now, obviously, like the proof's got to be in the pudding. Like we'll
Yeah.
see in the
Yeah.
fall. But like the players like him, the coaching staff speaks highly of him, and it's pretty impressive to watch him out there.
good.
That speaks well. I was gonna ask like about a general vibe check of this team, but it feels like all things considered, if that part's, I mean, we knew the offense was gonna be fine. Like we had no worries about. I mean, knowing who we had in coming into the season. Now, good to hear that the wide receiver depth actually was able to make some flashes when
Mhm.
the main four starters we think, or four of the main starters we think weren't even in the game. Uh, that's good to see. We know we've got arguably the best quarterback room in the country, at least known quarterback room in the country of what's on tape right now of these two quarterbacks. Um, so I don't want to gloss over what I had down as a vibe check on the team, but I think I feel like we'd all be in consensus of, like we're in a spot you'd want to be at this point of the year, which is, I mean, April 14 is not a notable time of the year to do a vibe check, but if you're going to do one now, it feels like things are in the right spot.
Yeah, like I would not push back on that at all. Like I think they think they're a pretty good football team. And I
As
know
they should, as they should. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And it's different, I mean, this will be my fourth season covering the team. Like in the past, I think there was like, we're working hard, we're trying to be as good as we can, but we kind of don't know. Especially, like Key's first year, you had new coordinator, you had just a lot of new stuff. Even last year, you're
Yeah.
like still building things up. But there is a little bit of a I won't say certainty because nothing's certain in college football, but there is hey, we know we're pretty good now. Now we just got to go be consistent and show it every week instead of 8 weeks out of 12 or 7 weeks out of
Yep.
12.
Yep. And Key's
Yeah.
shown, and Key's mentioned that in his pressers a
Yeah.
bunch. It's just like it's learning how to win consistently. It's getting on the other side of this progress hump of not just having really big surprising wins, but like having it not be a surprise that we win routinely and effectively at the same time, which is a concept I think we still, as a football fan base, are getting used to expecting, so to say, without fear. But we'll get there when we get there. Of note, Saeed Gibbs did go into the portal a couple days ago. Our line. So from what I could pull, our linebacker depth must be that good if Gibbs feels like it's time to go from Tech. And we'll see. I mean, I know the portal's about to open, and our guy, there are guys we have that other teams will want. Please, no one take Jordan Vanderberg. That's my main concern. I need that guy to be on this team. Okay, spring games as a concept to wrap up this part. Jake, I was surprised that you mentioned like the most of the East stands were full because I was at last year's game. I forgot. I think it wasn't with you, but it was with a couple other friends that we both know. It didn't. I don't think it felt like it was massively full in last year's on that same side of the stadium. So if you're saying that you could barely get a seat, weirdly, that might mean that we had a bigger attendance than last year. Of course, they don't count this in any way, shape, or form. But just from what I remember last year being in there during the most populous portion of that game before I left too, that that's interesting to know. That's an interesting note. We also didn't change our format from last year either. Like we didn't like make it far more practicey compared to how other teams around the country have gone from this is a game to this is a glorified practice to we're barely even playing football. So there is that going on. So do you have anything on that?
Well, and I think I'm not sure I got in a word edgewise on the vibe check on the
Oh,
team
sorry.
right
Yes,
now,
do
and
that
I
too. Yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah,
say that it ties with that, right? It's a team coming off its second straight bowl appearance. We don't have to relitigate the bowl appearance,
yeah.
but in terms of Georgia Tech's competitive positioning, it's not perfect, but it's about as good as it's been since maybe 2018 Paul Johnson-ish, like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
spring,
yeah,
where it's like, 2017, maybe it's like didn't really go the way it could have been, more perfect, things like that. I mean,
hmm
ifs and buts, right? We've talked
right,
about that 6 ways to Sunday, and again, we don't need to relitigate it, but it was a beautiful day in a place that has lots of interesting things to do post game. I'm sure that was a draw, and honestly, last year I wound up watching the softball series the whole weekend because there was another game in
right,
town. So
right. Yeah,
maybe that's part of it. But
yeah. Don't overlap with your other sports if you can avoid it too. So
yeah,
that's a big thing.
yeah.
Um, I
But
go ahead.
I was gonna say my big but there though is I don't know about spring games as a concept that I would continually like sign up to attend. It would have to be a
Right.
perfect storm, and that's me speaking for me. But at the same time, like I don't know, it's a statement on a lot of things that need to be
Thought through again.
figured
Yeah,
out, thought
yeah.
through at the NCAA level. And dare I say, like, it's not great in football, but compare it to what's going on in men's and women's basketball right now. And I would say that, the situation, quote unquote, around football feels more almost more manageable than than what's going on in men's and women's hoops. But I
Right.
think also at the same time, like that's because rosters are big. You have tons of guys who are just walk on or like kind of the fringy scholarship guys who are just trying to get a good degree and play a game they like and hang around in a way
Yeah.
that you see it in men's and women's hoops. And I don't want to, disregard that. But I mean, surely there are lots of things that could be done that are independent of spring games as a concept that would make fans and players and coaches and administrators feel like the sport is on more stable footing, whereas spring
Yeah.
games are just the symptom or the outward showing of all of these bigger macro problems. At the end of the
Right.
day, it's essentially an open practice, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you call the event an open practice, you've then made it less appealing to go to if you
Boom
call it a
go.
practice and not a game
Yep.
specifically. So Jackson, no,
And I
go ahead.
was just gonna say, I do think what you were saying earlier about the structure of it not overlapping with games and stuff, and I think also like an important aspect of it was it being free as well for fans. It's
Yes.
like, hey, come on in. You're not charging. I don't know what Virginia Tech did. They charge let their fans come to the game, while also there's a baseball game against Florida State going on at the same time. So it's not like
My God.
like, that's
Okay.
poor structure. And
Yeah.
the last comment I was going to make is I agree with you in terms of like football. It seems more manageable, but that is also a funny thing to say given what's going on at Tennessee over the weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
100%.
yeah,
And I'm glad you mentioned that because at the highest level, that is again symptomatic of those giant macro problems that are
yeah.
Yeah.
a few years in completely unsolved. Like it's
No, and
just
it's I don't know how you saw it. Yeah, and that's
yeah,
like a 3 hour podcast we could do, but I
that's a
I
summer
don't
podcast.
worry. We're gonna have a house resolution episode probably in like a month once that all gets cleaned up, or 2 months once that all gets cleaned up. So yeah, no, I mean I saw the picture that Alabama spring game was barely attended, which I'm like that was probably the thing to do in Tuscaloosa that day too. Like I
But
Like,
Think about how many of their fans have to drive in from somewhere else too. Like,
true, that's fair. Yeah, yeah.
and granted, Georgia Tech fans have to do that as well. But like, it's a lot more noticeable when your stadium seats 100,000 and you're famous for packing these people in. Whereas Georgia
Mhm.
Tech getting 7, 8,000 on a Saturday
It's a
in
different.
the
Yeah, yeah,
spring in a
yeah,
55,000 seat stadium, like,
yeah.
I thought it was a good crowd. From my
yeah.
perspective up in the
Good,
press box, I
good.
thought it was a
Love it.
perfectly good crowd.
Love it.
And the vibes walking around were very much noticeable in terms of just people out and about enjoying the day, even if they never made it into the game. It's a good excuse to get people, engaged. So
I'll wrap on this note.
you are
Yeah,
undergrads, you know.
yeah. We know. Yeah, I'll wrap on
Yeah.
this note. That still is important though in terms of the making Georgia Tech an appealing brand. If you can slot
Yes.
yourself into those moments of like, hey, you can have a fun time here just in your Atlanta life,
Hmm.
that can help create repeat customers. Dogwood Festival was happening a few blocks away at Piedmont Park at the exact same time. Very
Yep.
easy to just get the both and people that want to do both and it's not if you don't have little kids, it's probably not that hard to just be like, yep, take the train from campus down to Piedmont, have a great day,
Yeah.
walk around, see some art and things like that. So yeah, even if the idea of spring games is like not exactly gaining in popularity, there was still a way for Tech to have a win in that, and it seems like they had that win.
Yeah, and I have one unrelated plug that I
Great.
could not find a way to slide in any of those places for my basketball conference listeners out there, which you should all listen to with Joey Weaver. I would say that the interception that AJ Cheeks caught was in the range of Cheeks, so consider that your crossover, your plug for them. If you are craving sports content, you've got Jackson stuff to check out. Jackson, you should plug that again, and also
We'll do it.
the extended from the Rumble Seat universe because we put out a bunch, but I know that you're the master of that, and I want to let you, take the floor to plug not just the Georgia Tech stuff, man.
Well, I'm definitely not the master of anything. Like I still, this is the number one Georgia Tech podcast. Like I got a ways to catch up before I get to y'all. And plus, I may never put myself number one because you gotta stay hungry. I gotta
Yeah.
catch up to you guys. But yeah, would appreciate it if you haven't already. Just go check out Georgia Tech on SI. I do plenty of stuff over there. Like the summer will not slow me down. Like there's gonna be baseball, there's softball, whatever. Like I've got you covered over there. Also do Atlanta Hawks coverage as for what was it like the millionth year in a row play-in tournament tomorrow.
I didn't need to watch the season. We all knew it was going to happen, and here we are
Yeah,
once
but
again.
I will just say without Jalen Johnson, that's fairly impressive. It wasn't like it was a
Good
fully
point.
healthy
Good
squad
point.
for the whole
Good point.
time. They'll win tomorrow. They'll be heavily favored against the Celtics if they win. We all know that. So
Yep.
it's
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
so go check out Atlanta Hawks on SI if you are a Hawks fan and a Georgia Tech fan.
He gets it done. Jackson, I appreciate you coming on. Unless you want to talk about baseball, you're free to go. You released from our
Baseball is
clutches.
very good. That's my leaving comment. Baseball is very, very
There
good.
you go. Perfect. That's true. The true fact. That's a true fact. That is true, Jackson. I'll be texting you my complaints about something in a Hawks game in the near future. So thanks for coming
Probably
on.
tomorrow night.
Yep,
I'll
that's
see you
probably
guys.
good.
See ya.
See ya. On to
Jack,
yes, go ahead.
I was going to say he said the team's very good. Have you scrolled down yet to our little rankings table? And if you
Uh,
haven't, then don't, because I want you to guess where we're
I'm
at in
looking
the
at.
Massey.
I know I'm looking at it. I'm looking
Damn
straight
it.
at it.
Ah,
I got a very big monitor. The whole page is visible for me.
nuts.
So yep. Sorry.
Ah,
But
dang.
anyways, the as of today, number 14 Georgia Tech baseball team per D1, swept the Cal Bears this past weekend. They are now 29-7, 14-4 in the ACC, which puts them in first place. We are in first place in the ACC. We got three. Clemson's in second. They have 3 games in hand. So in theory, if they won all 3 of those games and we held serve, they would take the top spot because they won our series. But nonetheless, rankings wise, from 13th in all of the perfect game rankings, coaches poll in Baseball America, 12th in RPI. We actually dropped back 2 spots in RPI. Massey moved us up a spot in 7, and our little nifty proprietary ranking system, USI, has us at number 8. And that feels about right, considering this is a team that did not have an amazing, I would say, weekend, but considering who has been out right now with Lodis and Schmidt both not playing, and the pitching did what it needed to do, and we got another run ruled win when it was all said and done. So Patel had to pitch twice, but it's fine. It got us 2 wins. So in
You-
the end, this for a battered and bruised team, I have no complaints.
Honestly, Jack, the biggest thing driving the change in our USI ranking is that we have games in quad two again.
Yay! How
So
about
good job, rest of the schedule for playing either bad enough or good enough to give us at least one quad two win because
Right.
we normalize that all out to get rid of some weird noise with low majors. But I think it's emblematic of just kind of where Georgia Tech is at, man. Like it's a team that's played a very, very tough schedule
Mhm.
in conference thus far. I would not, coming into the season, have guessed with how much turnover and investment is behind the Miami program that we'd be looking ahead to them and going, oh, okay, yeah, like mid 60s team.
We got it. Yeah. No,
It,
this is insane. Yeah.
Tech right now is 10-4 in quad one games, and that includes a brutal loss to Auburn where we spotted
Hmm.
them
Hmm.
4 runs, which we didn't talk about yet. Georgia Tech lost a home game on
Oh, that's right.
Tuesday to number 5 in the RPI, Auburn. They are also rated quite well in our
Yeah.
internal systems here. So yeah, it's not as we would call ideal to lose like that, but the 10-4 is not a bad spot to be in, and series like that Virginia Tech win, and you know, Stanford's holding their ground. Notre Dame doing just enough to stay in that quad one territory. Georgia Tech's played a tough slate. This
Yeah.
is a schedule that is certainly normalized after, I would say, probably a kind of soft start.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. And I think that's been something we're just wanting to see is like we saw the beginning of the season and like the two losses to Marshall was like, what the hell? And then things got right. They beat everyone they were supposed to beat. And then it was like, okay, what does this seemingly flawless Mason Patel guy look like against proper ACC competition? And he's holding up. I mean, it's not perfect like he was. He's still allowing some runs here and there, but again, it's just here and there for how many innings that he throws, which is basically part two of every game one of a series, and sometimes the last part of a game three,
Yep.
as we saw this weekend. So I mean, yeah, the pieces we need to be working are all working. Like it's not a perfect team because they obviously they'll still lose some games, but I mean, in a very gratifying way, I don't have a spot in this team where I'm like, uh-oh, this is how a team can beat us. I'm like, we got the bats, and we have more bats in waiting that are going to come off injury eventually that we're demolishing the rest of the country
Well,
before they got
and
over.
what's the old rub on baseball, right? Like a great team's gonna win 60, lose 60, and what you do with the other 40 is where you make your bread and butter.
Yeah, something
You
like
can
that. Yeah.
paraphrase me there, but Georgia Tech's 29-7. That's
That's doing everything you're supposed to do consistently day in and day out. Like that's what that
yeah,
looks like. So that's
yeah.
amazing stuff. To give some more context for the series, Friday, Tate McKee, Mason Patel. Again, we're the only pitchers in the Friday start with exactly what we needed. Kyle Lodiz has been day to day. He did not play this series, and so Von Lackey got the leadoff spot, and he ended up having a clutch 2 RBI single to get some insurance runs in the bottom of the eighth inning to get that game sealed away. Alex
Yep.
Hernandez also had a big 3-run homer in that game where Jake, were you watching Friday's game when or this part when Hernandez had his home run and nearly crossed over Drew Burris on the base paths?
I had it on the radio, and bless Con Lacey's heart. Or no, I had it on the TV stream, but I wasn't watching the TV. I don't know
Okay.
why I did that instead of listening to the radio. But the guys were really confused. And I was then also confused because
They
I
were
was weeding my garden.
Yeah,
So
they weren't
good.
showing good replays, but yeah,
Yeah.
on the TV it's for a little too long. But yeah, the ball. I mean, so at that time the wind was blowing very very strongly into right field where Alex hit that ball, and like it
Hmm.
just got over the wall. Like without the wind, that ball was an easy out.
Yeah.
And
It's been
so
windy for like 5 straight days, by the way.
yeah, it
Crazy
has been.
winds. Yeah.
Yes. So what was it? Lackey was at third and Burris was at first. And as the ball's tailing out, Burris saw Lackey tag up at third base because, like, at worst, he can just walk home even if it's a home run, or he just runs home if it's a home run. And so Burris started backtracking. And then by the time it was clear the ball had gone over the wall, Hernandez had basically caught up even with Burris. And so Hernandez caught it. He thought he caught it a little late potentially, but then just stopped and backtracked and let Burris go. The replay was not conclusive in any way, shape, or form to show if Hernandez had
Mm.
fully crossed over Burris, which in that case, we never figured out what the ruling would have been if Hernandez had crossed Burris. My thought is that it would have been a 2-run homer with an out, Hernandez would have been called out for crossing over Burris, but Burris and Lackey would have still scored because they didn't do anything. So I don't know. Anyways, they got the 3-run homer in that game. Saturday was a blow 'em out run rule game, like 18-2 or something crazy. Um, Tech has now had run rule wins against their last 5 ACC opponents, which includes against Stanford as well and Clemson in that run of games. So they, which I mean, that does so much for this team to know you can just kind of save your important pitching, and that's why we could throw Jalen Payton on Sunday, where Caden Spivey only threw 1 earned run in 5 innings. Payton came in, allowed a couple runs, and then Patel had a 2 inning save, and we won 4-3. Multiple ways to win these games: blow them out, or just slice and dice your pitching as you need to fill it, and have guys. And Caden wasn't listed as a starter until like Saturday, anyways. Like we didn't know what was going to happen there, and they're figuring out ways to do this with only 2 true starting pitchers right now, and then figuring it out on Sunday.
I've seen us play enough games that quote unquote past Tech teams would lose, if that's a generous way to put that, that
Sure.
I'm comfortable in saying that like it passes the smell test too, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're
Yeah.
just I don't know. There are learned behaviors that come with being a sports fan, team-based, sport-based, what have you, where you see something and you feel it in the pit of your stomach. Honestly, the only time I felt that way this whole like string of what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in which Georgia Tech is something in three, something big in three. Like yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
wins. A lot of
yeah,
wins. Yeah.
a lot of wins and 3 losses. I guess maybe the Clemson game late, but really that loss, they really kept it within 1 run, and some
It
of that's
wasn't a bad loss
excusable.
at all. Yeah. No.
And the Auburn game, like they spotted them 4 runs and still darn near came back and won
Right.
it. Like
Right.
like
Yeah.
if you count what they did with 27 outs and not count this 4 run spot, that's an
Yeah.
8-5 win, which is not
Yeah.
how baseball works. And that's the beauty of the sport is you play
No.
your 27 outs. It's not,
Yeah. Yeah.
ifs, ands, or buts. But I mean, the team's looking good. We're going to learn a lot about them tomorrow, and I don't know whether to be
Woo.
excited or nervous, but I mean, we'll be there. Like,
Yeah. Before
you
we
know?
get there, well, for one, I'm glad this team is far less chaotic than a Rory McIlroy's final round at Augusta right now.
Yeah.
Fun facts: one fun fact I have on this team right now is they are currently on track for the most doubles per game in program history at about 2.5 per game. The records for the team is about 2.1. Drew Burris, Kyle Ludes, and Carson Curse all have 14 or more doubles right now, and
That's
Ludes.
a very baseball stat.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
cool. That's random.
Shout out to Anthony. Shout out to Anthony Brandt over at ASID, who was very good about just finding that good stuff for me.
Yeah.
So far, I'll give you another one. Since Danny Hall announced that he was not going to be the head coach next year, we have outscored opponents 120-53 in those 11 games.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Just announce
Pretty,
someone's
pretty
leaving,
good.
and you'll just score the crap out of every game. That's the absolutely scientific takeaway to take away from that.
John Giesler is leaving after this year.
No, he's got to stay one more year. He's got to stay for a 7 so that we can do a goodbye year for. He can't stay for one more year.
That's not
this
how
is
that works.
that is
But
not how that
yeah.
one works, sadly. So, anyways, the other thing, Burris is ahead of Mark Teixeira in total homers as a Yellow Jacket now, which
Wow.
Teixeira was only 18th.
Huh.
Yeah, not as high as you would have thought.
Yeah, not as high as I would have thought, but
So there
go
you go.
figure. Jack, I
Yes.
think it is deep enough in the season that I can feel pretty confident in saying that eighth as being a potential, regional host.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of teams that profiles, kind of if you think pure snake draft, accounting
Mm-hmm.
for which teams are in which conferences, nothing geographical or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that, but it still
Yep.
winds up roughly geographical if you exclude conferences. Georgia Tech, Dallas Baptist,
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt, and Tennessee Tech
As the Georgia Tech regional
as the
hosting
Atlanta Regional
hosting Vanderbilt. Wow.
and Dallas Baptist.
That's not uh easy
Yeah.
at
It,
all. That
it
okay.
Yeah,
Dang.
it's not easy. The numbers kind of pencil out with 13 of the 16 SEC teams making it, which feels high. I imagine that probably settles closer to 11 or 12 as they take more losses amongst
Yep.
themselves.
Yep. Yep.
Vandy among the SEC crew, you got Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, ugh, LSU, Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma all in front of them. So Vandy pencils in at about the 10th highest SEC team in our ratings, and then DBU obviously one of the best
Yeah.
mid majors in the sport in the
Yeah.
last couple of years there.
Yeah.
In terms of hosts and things, McNeese from mid major Southland, Oregon
Mm.
State Independent, and then
Hmm.
the rest, I believe, are all Power Four type looks.
That
So
makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I don't know that kind of starts to pass the smell test to me.
I
It
mean, we're getting there. Yeah. I mean, like
up.
they're as long as they're going to stay in the top 16 of every ranking we know is worth its darn. Like
Yeah,
in theory, that should get that should get
yeah.
you, especially for the top team in the ACC. Like, come on, they're not going to just if the best team in the ACC is doing this well, they're not going to not have at least one host just to make things palatable because you can't have 16 SEC hosts. As much as the SEC is trying to buy their way into 16 SEC hosting slots, I have no actual information on this. It's yeah, it. I feel
Well,
like I feel good. Assuming we stay the course, I feel good.
and if you think about it, independent mid-major hosts two kind of makes sense. Get a
Hmm.
UCLA for a Big Ten,
Yep.
two Big 12, so that leaves you with the uh, kind of how the math works out. Four ACC, and then I guess that's like what, six-ish SEC hosts. I mean
Yeah, six to
I don't
yeah.
love it, but kind of
It's
makes
not
sense.
amazing.
I
Six
don't
to
know.
eight. A 6 to 8 competitively feels right too. All the
Yeah.
same. Like I mean,
Hmm.
they're good for a reason. So,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
yeah. So we were talking about tomorrow night. For one, we are very glad that our game against the guys out in Athens is back at Truist Park. I think that is the
Yes.
most important thing about this, regardless of the fact that not getting three chances to beat them may not help us RPI wise or whatever. The fact that this game is back at Truist Park is a big deal and is awesome. This game against the Georgia Bulldogs tomorrow night, or I guess tonight if you're listening on Tuesday, is at 7 p.m. tonight. It is radio only. There is no visual broadcast of this game unless you get a fan to do an Instagram live or something. But then that would go against broadcast rights. So do that at your own risk.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
illegal.
yeah, don't
Don't
do
do
that. Don't
crimes.
do that. You can FaceTime with a friend. You can FaceTime with a friend. Uh, but yeah, is that Truist Park? If you can be at this game, be at this game because it's the same battle we always battle. The red and black tends to outnumber gold and white just because of sheer numbers, and so whoever we can get there is a big freaking deal. And it is we are in the teeth of Braves country up there. Uh, this is obviously our biggest game of the year every year, even if it's whether it's one, two, or three number of times we play them, or in a regional or whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
not having Kyle Lodis sucks. We probably won't have Kyle Lodis based on the day-to-day nature of his injury. I mean, I'm sure he would be. I'm sure he wants to play so bad. Like all of them want to play this game so badly. This is part of the core Georgia Tech baseball experience. Um, who's I don't think we know who's pitching yet tomorrow for. Or
We
do we
do.
know? We do.
We
Okay, who
do.
is it?
Hold on one sec. I have
All
this
right.
in another channel.
Okay.
Barfield
All
starting.
right, Brett. All right, Brett Barfield's gonna start. All right, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe we need someone's got to someone's got to throw the game. Like it can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's shown good flashes throughout the year, so not concerned. It'll probably be again the game where we're throwing 5, 6 guys on the mound just because it's a Tuesday game, and Georgia hits kind of insanely well. We are hitting insanely well, like kind of across the board is like a for average and for doubles kinds of team with homers in there. But Georgia hits bombs. They hit a lot of them. I know they were leading the country. They may still be leading the country in bombs right now. So that is scary. Thankfully, we're avoiding their main starters because it's not a weekend game, so that's helpful. I mean, but they are too for us. They don't have to face Tate McKee. They probably don't have to face Mason Patel. Maybe Patel throws an inning. I don't know if Danny's willing to do an every 2 day kind of thing with him. Uh, we'll see.
Jack, I feel
Probably
like
not.
this is a game where the not you throw out the record books. Maybe you do. I don't. You get what I mean though. Like this
Yeah,
is a game that means more than your just, average weekday
it's
game.
it this yeah no this is a playoff game in the middle of the season. It absolutely is that.
Mhm.
The emotional strength the emotionality of it will be at that level. Yes, we are still early enough. I mean, we're middle of the season right now, so there is still an element of you cannot do something stupid that's going to ruin a guy later down the line in other important games. But no, it is still a very specific kind of game that and winning will go a long way for us. Like that's a big time quad. This would be the biggest win of the year outside of I guess I mean emotionally yes. I mean beating Clemson when they were number 3 in the country, it's obviously very big too. So like this will be the highest ranked win of the year if we get that. Uh, but nonetheless, there is so a lot riding on this game and can definitely help also just down the line with seeding and things like that in the NCAA tournament. Like if this can be a factor in that. So that's a big deal. So I
Yep.
mean, there's not I would say there's not too much to just get preview. The guys who've been playing are the guys that are gonna play. If you can get to this game, go to this game. I know going to Cobb County on a Tuesday night after work is probably just not the ideal thing to do, but it's this part. At least this game's not in Athens on a Tuesday night, so
Yeah.
it could be a hell of a lot worse. So, yeah, go ahead.
And then for the radar this weekend, Tech in Miami. I believe
Yep,
two of the games are on ACC Network,
that is correct.
maybe.
Yes, Friday and Saturday are on ACC Network. Yeah,
And then, yeah, the Miami, like I kind of alluded to earlier, probably not quite the Miami team we thought they might be, but they're in their ballpark. They're a top 70-ish type team. The series win would be delightful, you know?
yep. Well, we'd love to keep the ACC win streak up and get the
Yeah.
sweep, but a 2 out of 3
Keep
also just as fine.
keeping pace with Clemson at the top of the table would be delightful. So,
That's the main thing is you get yeah. It's we were playing ahead on this Clemson thing, but the ideally it'd be nice to uh not let them control their destiny. I think is the idea here.
mhm.
A lot of wins, a lot of games to make that a reality, but the more we can do, the better. Of note, that Friday game is not at a usual 6 p.m. start. That is an 8 p.m. start down in Coral Gables. So I don't know
Whew.
why. I don't know if it's because they
That's
want
the
to play.
TV effect for you, Jack.
Yeah, I guess that is a TV effect. I was thinking like weather, like they want to play after the if there's more sun gone, but then they play at 4 o'clock and 1 o'clock. So I don't think that's actually the case whatsoever.
Yeah.
So probably television. Okay,
Okay.
baseball, man, so freaking good, so fun. Okay, softball. They're still doing all right. They're still doing all right. Not the greatest weekend for them. They're now 26-17, 10-8 in the ACC, which puts them in eighth place, right in the smack middle. 32nd in Massey. They beat Jacksonville State in their midweek and then beat UNC to open their series against them. We're up 7-1 in game two of that series and then lost 8-7 and then lost 8-3 in the finale. So only got 1 out of 3. UNC now leaps Tech in the standings because now they have the tiebreaker and both have an 8 ACC record. I didn't catch any of this because I was watching the Masters and going to things all over town and whatnot. So sadly, this is the one that didn't get much of my radar. But I think we were talking earlier, like it's the fact that this 7-1 game turned into a loss. That's the big deal. That's the thing. Like that could be a game where a number of things hinge, in at least in terms of the standings wise in the ACC when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and I think to that point, like I know that you noted that, this is a team that's pretty much even with Georgia Tech in the ACC standings. And as far as back as the nitty-gritties have been released for the NCAA and we've been able to update our ratings on our side, we've had Georgia Tech and North Carolina within 10 places of each other, one direction or the other, the entire way.
Mm,
This series would have gone a long way to saying, hey, instead of us being tied, there's 2 games between us, right? Because that one game
yep.
is a 2-game swing, and you're up
Hmm.
6 halfway through the game. You're hitting pretty well. We talked about not getting that Stanford series win, right? The second game in that series, and then
Mm,
Georgia Tech did not wind up winning the series. I think obviously not a like for like, because I think Stanford is by all accounts probably a better team than North Carolina.
yep.
This was in their building, in North Carolina's building. So, getting a road series win is something that you generally would love to do. And now you're just, in a head to head. If we're picking between two teams, that puts you, that much further down, the pecking order. That
Mm.
said, I have both these teams in the tournament as it stands. The numbers actually love the ACC this year with 9 bids.
Hey, here we go.
Stanford's in the top 20, Cal in the top 40. Those
Hmm.
are or top 35. Those are both, great additions to the conference. And I think kind of having more of that high tier tournament caliber team helps the resumes of the rest of the teams in the conference. I think the ACC was probably about a bit or two short from what we've expected, maybe over the last 4 years collected. So maybe that swings something the other way. But in terms of the teams right around Georgia Tech, there's 4 ACC teams in a row in the USI. Obviously, this is not a guarantee for how something is going to happen.
Yep.
But when you have Georgia Tech, Cal, North Carolina, and Virginia all within 4 places of each other, and then a sizable gap before you hit Louisville, I think that's a pretty clear sign that those top 9-ish teams in the ACC are all right in next to each other, and you're gonna have to draw the line somewhere. And losing to
Yep.
Cal and North Carolina, yes, those series were in their building, works out maybe not so much in your favor when it comes down to, you know,
Yep. when a human has to
tying
look
that
at it and
off.
make a decision, yeah, that doesn't help. That
Yeah,
doesn't help.
even if the numbers like Georgia Tech just a little bit better, and that's because Georgia Tech's played a crazy strength of schedule so far, and
Yes, that is true.
that's just kind of that's just kind of how it goes. And you play the games on your schedule. I really like them going to Jacksonville State though. I don't want to get too far away from that.
Hmm.
Jacksonville State is not quite in as a mid-major. Hard when the SEC gets basically every team in to get a
Yep,
non
yep.
conference championship berth. But going on the road to a pretty good mid-major is exactly how you want to schedule your midweeks, and they
Hmm.
took care of business, right?
Yep.
That's a good spot to be in as well. And yeah, Georgia Tech top 20 strength of schedule. That those losses, though there may be more of them than a North Carolina who has four fewer. Yeah, Georgia Tech also is 50 places or more higher than them in a lot of strength of schedule metrics.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's
And they'll
it's an
yeah.
if or statement, not a
Lots of
both
yeah,
and type thing.
yes.
So,
And that strength of schedule is only improving this weekend as they go
yeah.
to Tallahassee and play the number 9 team in the country in Florida State.
If
Uh, yep.
Jack, if they win one, that would be delightful.
I agree.
Every advanced metric I've seen has Florida State higher than 9. I'll tell you that they're at
Okay.
4 in mine and the RPI. So
Well, it just takes one crazy good Sophia Voyle start to, or anyone's start for that matter, to give us a shot. But of course, someone's got to score the bats as well. I know Alyssa Weiler had a good weekend, out, at least hitting the ball down at UNC, so that's good. So the bats were still alive. I mean, the bats were still for the most part there. I mean, scoring 2 and 3 is not great. Getting 7's good, but things are gonna have to happen. Things are gonna have to happen. So all the same, they're getting there where I mean, the fact that I don't want to gloss over this. The fact that they've been consistently per our projections in the tournament for the last few weeks is
yeah.
market improvement from last year. Like that's a step up. And we knew they had a lot of good freshmen coming in. We knew the recruits were good. We just need to see it pan out. And the pitching's been good enough to hold teams to not destroying this team, and they've been able to win some good games, including Oklahoma State and Auburn. So
You know what this team reminds me of? And this is me spinning something on the fly, so you can shoot
all
me
right,
down if it
all
doesn't
right.
make any sense. This team reminds me of that. I think it was 2022, maybe 2023. No, I think it was 2022. Georgia Tech baseball team that got sent to Tennessee in the regional. That
Mm,
you had a couple good pitchers, but just kind of inconsistent on the mound with
right,
leak runs at times, and like
right.
you have the high highs, right? You can
Yeah,
win a series against a good team, you can take a game against a good team,
yep.
but like some of that like variance monster will thing you. And
I remember this feeling exactly. It was like, okay, you got if you get the right conditions,
if
this team
Zach
can maybe
Maxwell
be
pitches really good,
if Zach Maxwell pitches 170 pitches in a game, we might have a shot at
yeah.
winning the game. And with Sophia Voyles, it's like, okay, if she's dealing, like it's gonna that kind of goes back to the last tournament team this team had. Like when
Yeah.
Blake it was when Blake Nelliman was dealing that this team rose of such a massive level that compared to when she wasn't pitching. Thankfully,
And
Kenzie Norton's also pretty darn good too, so that's helped out a lot as well. But there
and I
still is a
think
clear version to get this team to a win.
and I think on that point, that team had two like good to great pitchers reliably,
Yeah.
Blake Nelliman and Chandler Dennis. But after that,
Right, like
the depth was not
that's what I
there.
mean. It's like the perfect
Yeah.
conditions had. You couldn't. It wasn't like this current baseball team where it's like they've got 18 different ways they can find a way to
Well,
win. This
yeah.
softball team, if the bats are clicking, then the bats are clicking, and it doesn't almost doesn't matter who's pitching. But
Yeah.
otherwise, if you're going to play Florida State in a do or die situation, you have to get yourself to a point where you've got your best playing card out there to get a shot to win.
At this point, just playing consistent enough to be in the conversation to be a solid 2 seed and not get sent to Texas A&M or Oklahoma would
Oh
be
God,
delightful.
they're
But
Georgia Tech. You know exactly what quadrant of the bracket they're going to get sent in, regardless of what happens here, and that is the top left corner. Uh,
well,
Hopefully that
right
doesn't
now I
happen.
have them as the number 32, which would send them to College Station to play Texas A&M. So
Oh, God.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Just stay out of Texas. Just don't go to Texas, y'all.
It,
That's my advice for sports, not for barbecue. So anyways, okay. Well, hey, we got teams in tournaments. We got teams in a tournament spot. We got teams looking to maybe host a tournament spot. Football's looking good. That was a good 45 minutes. Let's take a second here to hear from our friends at Section 103.
Yes, as always, this podcast is brought to you by Section 103, section103.com. I just want to plug their baseball related stuff. There's like a 3/4 length sleeve. It's in blue with white as the base. And then you got the jacket script and a couple other script baseball type of shirts. I recommend it. I think it looks great. It's perfect time of year to get in your baseball theme. If you want to complement it with a cap. A lot of those are more the Brent Key or the golf rope type hats. But complete the look. Good for a game. Good for sitting out on the bleachers. And of course, there's the Tech Zip hoodie for the evenings as well, with a Georgia Tech baseball kind of arched look there, which might be my favorite of the bunch. Just editorializing myself. But you can check that out at section103.com. As always, 10% off code FTRS. Free shipping on orders over $80 every day. They are shipping again, so go check them out there and at Section 103 on Instagram.
All right, this will be a quick hits to wrap up this episode. Sadly, we have to mention a thing about women's basketball that I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to run away as fast as possible without running away from the mic. Danny Carnegie is now a Georgia Bulldog. Anyways, we still haven't heard about Cara Dunn. Do you actually have something? We could talk about this if you want, or we can go to Cara Dunn.
Uh, I would like to not talk about it, so let's
Okay,
advance
Cara
on
Dunn.
to the
All
next
right.
slide.
All right, Cara Dunn. Cara Dunn's transfer portal status is she's still in the portal. Uh, from what I've seen online, she has shown some interest in Cal, USC, or NC State. I believe she actually has visited Cal and USC, the Southern California version of USC. But she was on the do not contact list, so she is doing this quietly in her own way. So, I mean, in that sense, good for her. Got the agency. But please, praying that she comes back. No word as to what actually is going to be the actual case there, but we'll see. And so that is what we've got there. In terms of who's going to come and play for this team, we still don't know. There have been no announcements, nothing official in terms of who Karen Blair is pulling in the transfer portal. She's been making her rounds around campus at various games throughout the first pitch for one of the games. I think for that Auburn game on Tuesday, she was at the spring game for football, so she's getting around Tech, which is good to see. So nothing on men's basketball. For golf, this was a big weekend. Hiroshi Tai was at the Masters. He had a shot a very good one over on Thursday to put himself in at least ahead of what the cut line was by that day, and then he shot 5 over on Friday to miss the cut by 4 shots, and he sadly was not the low amateur by 3 shots. So that was a bummer, but still a +6 is still a very good rookie showing in tournament context. There, the Tech team does play Augusta National, I believe, at least once a year. And Hiroshi was able to take advantage of the fact that we're close to Augusta and he had qualified, so we could go practice and things like that. So, in terms of most qualified amateur, like most practiced amateurs at Augusta National, he is of the most practiced amateurs at Augusta National that they've probably had in a while, just by nature of geography for the most part.
And also taking 2 years off of college puts him age-wise a little bit older than
bit
the rest too.
That's true. That's true. A little bit of wisdom there.
Yep.
The team itself, the actual Georgia Tech team, is currently playing at the Ford Collegiate out in Richmond, Georgia. I did not check the standings so far because I would have saved the full results for next week. But that is their first big any kind of play in a while. As of now, they've only got 1 win still this year. They're at 23rd in the rankings, so they've slipped back compared to last year. I wouldn't call that a surprise, considering, I mean, you lose Christo Lamprecht, who was literally the lowest scoring player in team history. You're not exactly going to improve unless you get 2 more Christo Lamprechts to replace him.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Yeah, moving on to the tennises. Men's tennis is sitting at number 38, 37. ITA and Massey women's tennis is at number 29 and 31. The men lost to number 24, Clemson, 4-0. Not ideal. I believe that puts them at 11 and 11 on the season, which means they probably have to win one ACC tournament match before second round or beyond loss in order to, I believe, make the tournament. I think there's still the 500 mark that you have to hit for tennis, but I'm not sure, so don't 100% quote me on that. My eyebrows are raised, and knowing what I know about bracketology in pulling together these conferences and things like that in other places, is that a 38-37 type spot is generally right around where cut lines tend to fall if you plot them as ranks rather than, like the USI. I would put, kind of like that, 43, 44 range in the country once you
Mhm.
account for all the, I guess the automatic bids. Mm. Take with that as you will. Tennis is also a little more top heavy, so that line might shift up. So I really would put men's tennis right on that cut line. The ladies, they're a little bit more safe, being closer to that top 30 mark, just outside the top 25. They did lose to SMU. Jack, I believe that was 4-3.
Yep.
That was a game that, if you just purely look at the resume statistics, you'd think that Tech might want to get back. But the ladies are sitting at 12-9, so pretty decent there. SMU, not terrible, but at 53 in the country, with Tech being, kind of fringy top 30, maybe one you'd like to kind of improve your seed positioning, jockeying, getting towards that NCAA tournament time there.
There you go. Gonna need it. Lastly, so we had no major club sport action this past week, but Survivor did still going on. Eva Erickson, who is Green Torch Tech graduate, is still out there, still doing her thing. She's still on the show. You should tune in. I'm gonna go to a really big Survivor watch party this week down in South Atlanta, which is gonna be really big and hopefully meet some past contestants. If all goes to how I understand that event usually goes, so that'll be fun. Beyond that, man, campus is close to final season. Rambling On is this week for the new graduates, for the incoming
Jeez,
graduates.
already.
I know. I did. Welcome to mid-April. Uh, the the current residence hall still under construction. The new Fanning Athletic Building is very quickly getting cinder block walls getting put up right now. So that they've been moving along with that building pretty well. Sidewalks keep getting redeveloped. You can't walk on half a Fifth Street bridge right now because it's just blocked off to redo the sidewalk.
Fifth Street Jack looks awesome over
It
by
does.
Moe's and
Mm,
Amazon and all that. The landscaping, the parking, the stoplight, the bike lanes, the
it's so
traffic
much good.
lanes are more
It's
clearly marked. Like,
the
just
in about a year that whole
perfect.
all of Tech Square is going to be in a much better spot than it's ever been once the
Yeah.
sidewalks are done. They'll finish once the ISYE/Sheller Tower is finished, and they'll get the sidewalks done there. Uh,
It looks like they only built one of the towers. Am I crazy for
no,
thinking that? Are they
they're
phasing
connect
that?
they're connected. No, they're connected. One's just more shorter than the other one.
Okay.
They're not. It's not. It's two towers at once. The Sheller part is smaller than the ISYE part.
Because I was gonna
Uh,
say, because the corner over by Atwoods and on your way to, Sixth Street, that kind of cross street was weirdly empty. And I was like, aren't they building
well,
another building right
of
here?
note, there
Like,
is not a massive hole into the ground right there to build another building, so that they would have done that by
maybe it's
now.
just plaza-ish. I don't know.
Hopefully, I think they're doing courtyard stuff or something like that for the front of it. But anyways, yep. That for those that haven't been to Tech Square recently, they
Now,
it's all better. It's all better.
now what they need to do is give road diets to Spring Street and West Peachtree, so that way they're not
Mm,
highways going through the middle of town.
I agree.
Or
I
or make them
would
two
like that.
lanes in each direction, like Peachtree, or like with a turn lane.
Something.
Just something
Yeah.
so it's not 5 lanes of.
I don't like the 5 lanes in one direction thing for
Yeah,
them. It never is as fast as it used to think it should be, which is always annoying considering
yeah.
conceptually it doesn't make all the sense in the world to my
Jack, that's
commoner
called
brain.
induced demand. They added lanes, but then traffic expanded to fill
I
the space.
swear to God, if you make the connector 15 lanes, it'll finally
One more
work.
lane, bro. One more
just
lane, bro.
just one more. Just one. All right, we're clearly
No,
running out of things to talk
yeah.
about.
Um, yeah,
Go ahead.
I wanted to flag one thing about the Fanning Center from
Oh
the spring
yeah.
game. You mentioned cinder blocks. From the inside, it looks like they're actually putting up architectural steel instead of just structural steel. So
Oh, okay.
that's I saw something with a curve in it, and I was like, that looks more like something that's you know, further down the line than just we need the guts of the building up. So I
And
thought
I
that was
just
neat.
learned there's two kinds of steel when you're building buildings. So, welcome to school for me again.
I,
Uh,
I'm speaking metaphorically. I'm sure that
yes.
we could poke holes in how I said that, but it's the thing that's giving it the shape, not the core of the building, if that makes sense. So
If you're a civil engineer, text Jake, not me. Anyways,
yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I'll say this was a better episode than last week. Just self ratings again. I think we did good this week.
we're gonna celebrate the wins, and then I'm gonna eat food and go to sleep because it's been a long day.
Good idea.
I say at 7 p.m. No, as always, you can find us at fromtherumbleseat.com. Email us fromtherumbleseat@gmail.com. You can find us on Blue Sky. FTR's blog is over there. I'm there. Jack's there. Akshay is too. And he's got more followers than all of us, so you can probably find him. But I'm gonna let him share his at one day. That's an ongoing bit. You can find Section 103 on Instagram at Section 103, section103.com. You can also find From the Rumble Seat at From the Rumble Seat on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are distributed. Thank you for listening. Good night. Good luck. Go Jackets.